My name is Drew Waldron, and I am on with internationally recognized expert on resiliency and stress reduction, consultant, executive coach, author, and speaker, Dr. Eva Selhub. Dr. Eva, how are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. And how are you?
Fantastic. I'm excited to get into a conversation, and I think I'd like to start off by asking you, how do you describe your career to anyone who may be unfamiliar with your work?
That's a long one. What I usually start off with is by telling people that I'm a recovering Harvard doctor. So, and recovering being the operative word. So yes, I started out in internal medicine as a physician many years ago. And at that same time when I started, I also started out in the mind-body medicine field, working with Herb Benson at Harvard. It was part of Beth Israel Dignas, now part of the Massachusetts General Hospital. And I was the director there for many years. So basically got hands-on training in the mind-body approach to patient care and looking at the body as a whole, the mind as connected to the body, as well as the spirit, how we function in the world and how it affects our body and our health and well-being. So that's basically what I did since 1997, so over 25 years, and applied it to my clinical practice as well as my coaching practice to help individuals not only manage stress, but really learn how to use stress to their advantage to cultivate resilience to the point that they're flourishing, avoiding burnout and avoiding illness. And I've been able to transfer that over now into the corporate sector, now helping leaders do their job better and to be able to manage adversity with, and maintain success, profitability, as well as care for their culture. So I've sort of done a whole gamut from healing to coaching to spiritual advising.
That's an incredible career. So mind, body, and spirit. I feel like many people might not understand how spirituality fits into your career. How would you describe the role that spirituality plays in your work?
Interestingly enough, I think it's probably the largest part of my work and maybe even the largest part of most people's work, though they don't realize it, because spirituality simply means our belief, a profound belief that we're connected to something greater than. And most of us deal through adversity through that belief system, through a belief system of either believing something's not going to go well or something is going to go well, and what is supporting us to do that. And so if you think about the way doctors or medicine people used to practice medicine, maybe before 100 years ago, before the advent of Western medicine, spirituality was very much a part of how we lived our lives and how we healed. There was no separation from spirit, from our connection to something greater than, be it nature or being God or the universe or Mother Earth, whatever that may be. It was intricately connected with everything that we did. So for me, spirituality is simply doing my job. It's doing what people have always done. It's just that in the past 100, 200 years, we've forgotten. And we created a separation between not only spirit and who we are as human beings, but also from the brain and the body, which are not separate. So, thanks to Descartes, that got split up. So our Western medical model splits everything up as opposed to seeing everything together as holistically functioning to enable us to live our best life.
How do you think your work specifically in spirituality translates to some of your corporate clients that you work with, not just your
That's
medical ones?
Yeah, no,
Mm.
it's a really interesting question because for me, the human body is no different than the human organization, right? An organization is run by humans. So for now, before it's run by robots, right? So, but it's run by humans, and humans have thoughts, they have emotions, they have behaviors, they have attitudes, they have skill sets, they have all different kinds of things. And it's all, intricately connected. So how we approach ourselves, how we approach our lives is going to then determine how we deal with adversity and how we deal with stress and how we then manage our skills and manage people and manage outcomes. And for leaders, especially, the way they feel physically, psychologically, emotionally is going to affect how they lead, how they communicate, how they appropriately, ask for accountability, how they get people engaged, how they reward or, provide consequences for people. So if the leadership is not aligned and isn't aligned with themselves and their own self-awareness and their sense of who they are within the larger context of this world, it's going to affect their ability to do their job. And that therefore it's going to have that trickle effect on everything else. So that spiritual piece is actually, and again, it sounds kind of woo-woo, but it really isn't. It's really
Mhm.
just that knowing that one belongs to something greater than, and using those resources to support you to find your balance so that then you can do what you do well or even better.
That is a very human approach to business leadership. And speaking of some of your corporate clients, some of your work focuses on the Great Resignation, which is an ongoing economic trend which began in 2021 during the wake of COVID. Now, studies have shown that poor employee performance, absenteeism, and turnover have all been linked to work-related stress. And with all that in mind, what advice do you find yourself giving to those leaders in the business world that you say need to find their alignment?
Yeah, well, we want to look at everything, right? Look at why, because most people are worried now. I'm working with some companies now. Their concern is profitability. The economy's down, the opportunities are down, and they're worrying about profitability, and then they're worrying about engagement. So there's a lot of things to worry about right now. And so the need to step back and say, why is this happening? And what do people need in order to feel like they want to stay and want to do the work given the challenges we face? Again, that's bigger than just giving somebody a paycheck, because with COVID and with the way things have been going, people looked at their lives and said, what am I doing? My life is worth more than this. So the sense of value, of what people value, how people value, the need to feel valued has shifted. And then, and again, that idea of knowing that something has value besides what you just see in front of yourself on a piece of paper, that is spirituality. That's a spiritual aspect, right? And
Mhm.
so unless we start saying, okay, what does it mean to feel valued? And what does it mean to create value? And what does it mean to make a community or make a team that wants to stay together and build together? So that's really what we're looking at now. So this huge resignation from essentially burnout is looking at why does that happen? Again, it's human beings that are working in an organization, and human beings are social beings. They need to be connected to one another socially. And so you look at COVID, what that caused a huge, massive isolation where people were disconnected. So that's going to affect that. And then you can look at your organization and say, in what way are people isolated? In what way am I not supporting individuals to feel connected? And that means also being able to voice their concerns and being able to offer feedback. Do they feel safe? Do they feel autonomous? Do they feel safe to make decisions? Do they have the ability to have somebody to talk to? Do they have the ability to offer feedback? Is their feedback even listened to once it's given? Do they know what their role and responsibility is? So again, with lots of layoffs, lots of unsurety, lots of adversity, people are taking all different kinds of responsibilities. They don't even know what their role is. And they're not even getting credit for the things that they are doing because it's not in their job description. So being able to sit back and say, what am I valuing? Who am I valuing? And how do I express that value? It's about being able to then get clarity about what are the jobs, what are our needs, who are our people, getting the right people in the right roles, and everybody getting that value and being able to be accountable to one another and then feel valuable together. Then we have a team that can move forward together. So most people and most organizations aren't doing that, which means it's just going to, people going to continue showing up, trying to do their best, getting burnt out, leaving, or what have you. And that's what that cycle gets perpetuated.
I love that framing of viewing value as a form of spirituality. And I do think that's great leadership advice. But if you don't mind me switching it up a little bit, I would love to ask about advice for employees, because we live in an age where statistics shows that there are uncomfortably high rates of working adults that are facing anxiety, depression, or some form of burnout. We just spoke about advice that you'd give to business leaders, but what advice do you find yourself giving to employees?
Oh, and well, that's first and foremost. I have a three-tiered rule, not rule, but advice.
Mhm.
One is self-awareness, is to pay attention to what it is you're feeling, what it is you're thinking, what it is you're doing, like what is going on within me so that I can figure out what control I have over me. The key is to understand is that stress is always going to happen. How we manage it, how we perceive it, how we deal with it is then going to affect the outcome going forward. So it could be raining outside, and let's say I wanted to go for a walk, and then I see it's raining. Like, oh, bummer. I'm really pissed off now that it's raining and I stay inside, and I'm really pissed off because I didn't get to take my walk. That's one option. The other option is saying, oh, it's raining outside. I really don't like the rain, but I really want to go for a walk. And then I put on all my rain gear and I go out for a walk anyway. And I ended up being able to get the endorphins that I need from the walk. And I do feel better at the end of the day. Maybe a little wet, but I'm better. So it doesn't change the fact that it's raining. What changes is my approach to the rain, which is then going to change the trajectory of what that leads me to. Maybe I bump into a friend, or maybe I see a road sign that reminds me of something, about being able to stay open to the support that can help us through our life to get through this adversity. So the first thing is we just want to be aware of what we feel, aware of our emotions, aware of our physical sensations that are happening through us, aware that we are hurting or that we're upset, that we're tired, whatever it may be. That's number one. Two, which is the most important, which is the Burnout for Dummies, a recent book, what focuses a lot on, is self-compassion. So what we're so used to doing that we don't know how to be. We don't know how to be human beings. We think we're supposed to do this. We should do that. We should do this. I should be working. I should be happy. You're not supposed to or should be doing anything. You're human. Life has been hard. Your situation is challenging. And so first and foremost is you want to take care of you. So what I recommend is, again, self-awareness, noticing how one feels, honoring how one feels, and then having some self-compassion. And there's all different kinds of exercises that I teach people on how to do that, imagining that you are approaching yourself like you would your best friend or a small child, not with, recrimination, not with shoulds, not with supposed tos, but with love and compassion, with loving kindness, and saying, okay, I hear you. You're human. You're hurting. Guess what? You're hurting like other humans are hurting. This is a shared experience that you're having. And then the third part is to do what you can to take care of oneself. So there's different healing exercises, breathing exercises, stress reduction exercises, making sure that you are creating an infrastructure for yourself that takes care of you, that supports you to cultivate your 6 pillars of resilience, which are your physical vitality, your emotional equilibrium, your mental clarity, your relationships with other people that support you, your spiritual connection, and lastly, your own ability to be a leader in your own right. So those are different things that then I teach people and what they can do for themselves to get into a place of balance, to get into a place of strength, to get into a place of resilience so that then they can approach their situation more effectively. And then there's all different kinds of things one can do from there. Like, for instance, you can do job crafting and say, okay, what is it about my job that I like? What is it that I don't like? Where am I spending most of my time? Where am I spending the least amount of my time? What do I like doing? What do I not like doing? Can I delegate? And then we create organization within the infrastructure of that person's life, which all of a sudden they feel less overwhelmed. And I have to tell you, from the lowest rung employee to the C-suite, a huge percentage of stress is overcome simply by creating more organization. You would think that the C-suite people are super organized. They're not. They're just really good at flying off from the seat of their pants oftentimes, but they don't have an organized schedule, an organized calendar, an organized way of approaching their day so that things have a rhythm and a flow so they're not so overwhelmed. And then they're able to take breaks for themselves, right? So it's learning how to create an infrastructure in your life, take care of yourself, and find ways to incorporate breaks and times for gratitude and appreciation to fill up your tank so that then you can approach everything more effectively.
I think that's incredible advice and some incredible insight. And I kind of want to ask you a big question. I feel like a lot of the topics you just mentioned all stem from certain people having an external locus of control, people feeling as though they don't have control over their life or circumstances, feeling as though those expectations that you were talking about are thrust upon them and there's nothing that they can do about it. What, in your opinion, are some of the biggest drivers that are causing those negative emotions, those negative feelings? What in life do you find is inhibiting people the most, especially with corporate clients that you work with?
Well, just remember that, that's a really, really big question.
Mm-hmm.
And for most of us, it's just it's the way we've been programmed. You just think of from day one in our culture, in our religion, and the way we've been programmed to believe that we're only going to be valued if, right? We've been programmed to believe you're only valued if you produce. You're only valued if you make a certain amount of money. You're only going to be valued if you're married and have children. You're only going to be married if you're a certain race, color, creed, blah, 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 blah. So part of our cultural dynamic is such that our human way has been to be valued externally by what you do. what you produce, what you bring to the table, as opposed to who you truly are, which is essentially a spiritual being having a human experience. Okay. So you're here having a human experience, and you're a human being. You're not a human doing. You do things. So the locus of control, which, I hope to help people with, is to understand that your value already exists. And it's because you're valued that you get to do things. So the big shift is I have to do something versus I get to do something. The minute we shift into I get to do something, we become empowered. Because the truth of the matter is we have very little control over what happens in the world. That's very true. I don't have control over the weather. Some people think they do. I don't have control over what's going to happen in world economy or what's happening in the Middle East. I don't have control. That doesn't feel good. That turns on the physiological stress response, the fear response, which lowers neurotransmitters, increases inflammation and heart rate and all those other physiological changes, which shuts down my brain, and I can go into my fight or flight thinking mode as opposed to my higher brain, intelligent, 50-something-year-old mode. That's what's just going to happen physiologically when I go drop into a negative emotion. That's just what happens. So my control is to shift out of my negative emotion so that I have access to more logical, positive, rational thinking, that I have access to solution finding versus problem focusing. So that's what I have access to, because resources are available to us to manage adversity, whether within us or around us. But if we focus on being helpless, that life is happening to us rather than with us, then we'll fall into that victim mode, which affects the brain, which affects physiology, which then affects behaviors and affects how we approach things. And that can be a vicious cycle. So when we step back, reel it in and say, okay, I'm a co-creator, right? I could go out in the rain and enjoy it and jump in puddles, or I can stay inside or be pissed off. Either one's okay, but it's my choice. I'm a co-creator. Life isn't happening to me. It's happening with me. It's happening. And then how I deal with it is up to me. That's where the control is. And so when we reel it back in and we realize we have choices, and the other thing is you realize how differently your choices are made or behaviors follow depending on your emotional state. That's the big deal here, is that when we shift out of that negative emotional charge, how we do things, how we approach things, how we receive and perceive things changes entirely, which is then going to change the trajectory and an outcome.
Absolutely. I feel like it's a tough battle between human being and human doing, but I am grateful for this human experience.
There we go.
This has been a fantastic interview, and I always love ending on the same question or a variation of this question. What advice do you have for young people? Or alternatively, what advice do you have for young people entering the workforce in 2024?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think one of the things I admire about young people is they are questioning everything. They're looking at the way
Mm,
things have been done and saying, no, that doesn't work. And I really appreciate that. I know that the bosses don't like that because they think, oh, these youngsters don't work as hard as the old folks. But I think in many ways, I think that's great. I think it is continue to question, the status quo. And also while doing that, look to find ways to make it better rather than run away from it. I think that what a lot of kids do, a lot of young people do, is say, no, this doesn't work for me, I'm out, or I'm never going to live up to these types of expectations. So what I do is I encourage you to ask questions. Don't be scared of asking questions. Don't be scared of asking for help, and approach every situation as an opportunity for learning and growth, because it's only going to add to your ability and to your sense of value. So rather than looking at everything as a problem, look at everything you walk into, your job, as an opportunity for learning and growth. Ask questions, ask if there's, ways to be tutored or ways to be supported, ways to be helped so that you can get better at whatever it is you want to get better at.
fantastic advice for inquisitive young minds. Dr. Eva Selhub, thank you so much for your time. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.